For the first time that day, they asked me to attend the reading of my grandfather's will. It meant nothing to me. I'd never been close to my family. My mother and father, after all, had always lived their own lives. I, Ivory, had been alone since I was a child, like a shadow. Neither my mother nor my father had ever cared about what I thought or felt. In my family, the only person I had was my younger sister, Emma, who was the complete opposite, always in the spotlight. Everyone revolved around her. So when I heard I'd been invited to the will reading, I wasn't exactly thrilled. But something was about to change. I didn't expect to receive anything for myself. And indeed, as I'd thought, the only reason I had to be there was tied to my grandfather's final wish. The secrets of my family, who always seemed to linger in the background, grew with each passing day. When the day arrived, we set out for my grandfather's house, my mother, father, Emma, and other relatives, for the reading of the will. Grandfather had always been distant and cold to us, but there were constant rumors that he'd left behind a vast fortune. Looking at that old house, its aged walls, being together again after all these years stirred something strange inside me. The whole family was gathered, and the oddest thing was the palpable tension in the air. Everyone seemed unusually on edge. A family that knew each other but was never truly close, each member brimming with their own secrets. Grandfather had written in his will, "Don't forget me because I'm not dead yet." This sent a shockwave through the room that no one expected. In that moment, a mix of fear and unease crept into everyone. Even my mother and father looked as though grandfather might still be alive, as if they suddenly wanted to hide something. Those words enveloped me. Why had he left such a will? The way everyone started glancing at each other in stunned silence filled me with an odd restlessness. I could see the expressions on their faces. Thoughts tangled together. During the reading, it wasn't hard to spot my parents' expectations. They were always at the forefront. Emma, meanwhile, appeared as indifferent as ever, or so it seemed, but no one could know what was going through her mind in that moment. I knew her so well that I could read every move she made. Emma had always been my mother and father's favorite, but this time I had a feeling things were about to change. Grandfather's lawyer began reading the will, commanding the room's attention with calm authority. His opening sentence drew everyone's focus. "With this will, I leave a portion of my estate to my daughter, Margaret." Margaret was my mother. A brief silence followed as all eyes turned to her. But the lawyer continued, "And a significant portion of the remainder will go to my daughter Margaret's younger daughter, Emma Hayes." That moment, Emma's eyes lit up. What incredible luck! $10 million. I'd expected it. But this was just the beginning. My family had always treated me like I was ordinary. My mother, father, and especially Emma had pushed me aside. They always took the best for themselves while I lingered in the shadows. Emma getting that much didn't surprise me, but I hadn't anticipated she'd receive even more than I'd imagined. Then, suddenly, the lawyer went on. "And finally, Grandfather David Hayes leaves the entirety of his remaining estate to his granddaughter Ivory Hayes." Hearing this, I felt a momentary void. What did that mean? Had grandfather left me $90 million? "Yes," the lawyer confirmed. "Ivory Hayes will inherit the remaining entirety of the estate." Emma shot up immediately. I could tell from her expression that she was grappling with something far beyond what I'd expected. I heard her voice, "But why? What changed?" In that moment, I noticed Emma retreat into silence. She slowly pulled back. The lawyer's voice flowed like a river, clear and steady. But the same question echoed in everyone's mind. Why? Why me, when I'd never received a shred of interest or affection from grandfather over the years? Our relationship had been so cold. Yet, in the end, had he taken my side? Through all this time, why had he chosen me, even in just this one decision, as the true heir to his legacy? These questions spun relentlessly in my head. What truth didn't I know? Grandfather's fortune was immense. $90 million could catapult someone into an entirely different world. But what lay behind my inheriting this wealth? Why was my family so silent? Why didn't they say anything? Emma's demeanor revealed far more than I'd anticipated. She wanted this inheritance no matter what, but this time things wouldn't be so simple. Something sparked within everyone. The answer to the biggest question remained hidden. People looked at each other, but no one dared to ask aloud. In that moment, a fear surfaced inside me. Was it really this easy? Had grandfather truly chosen me? But then I realized something. This was only the beginning. After the will was read, a cold silence settled over the room. Everyone's faces had fallen, their expressions hardened. The faint clicking of the lawyer's pen as he gathered the documents echoed in the stillness. My mother, Margaret, avoided my gaze. My father, Gregory, tilted his head slightly forward, his brows furrowed. Emma's eyes, though, pierced right through me. Her face was blank, but her eyes were screaming. $90 million. No one, least of all me, had expected this outcome. My entire life, I'd been relegated to the background of the family. Ignored, silenced, belittled. At family gatherings, while Emma was showered with praise, I'd always been told to stay quiet, don't interfere. Now, with my grandfather's death, the entire balance had been upended. Emma suddenly stood up. The scraping sound of her chair against the floor startled everyone. She turned to the lawyer. Is this a joke? This is impossible. Grandpa always loved me. Why would he leave something like this to Ivory? The lawyer lowered his head, responding with a professional yet cold tone. The will is entirely legal and valid. David Hayes prepared it of his own volition 3 months ago and signed it in the presence of a notary. You're welcome to review a copy if you'd like. Emma's face turned ashen. Her lips trembled as if she were about to say something, but she stopped herself. Instead, she turned her eyes directly to me. For the first time, she was really looking at me. Gone was her usual condescending stare. This time, there was hatred. My mother finally broke her silence. This is nonsense. 10 million for Emma, 90 for Ivory? How is that justice? Ivory barely even spent time with us. She had no connection to family values. Emma deserved this fortune. She visited her grandfather every week. I barely held back the anger rising within me. I'd always felt my mother's resentment toward me, but now I was hearing it. Right to my face. Mom, you're the one who didn't want me to visit Grandpa, I whispered. But she was so furious she ignored me. Emma stayed loyal to her family, unlike you, she shouted. You were just an outsider, always looking in and judging, closed off in your own little world. And now you think you're clever enough to deserve this inheritance, don't you? Her words cut like a knife, but they weren't unexpected. The mother who dulled me with her words throughout my childhood was now spilling the same venom. Memories flashed before my eyes. Emma's childhood mischief pinned on me, unfair punishments, my achievements ignored, and not once had they ever said, "Well done" to me. As the lawyer moved toward the door, he handed me an envelope. This is a letter David left specifically for you. It's meant only for you to read. I took the envelope. On the corner, sealed by his own hand, was a note in his handwriting. Everything I've hidden is here. Open it if you're ready. As I left the room, my heart was pounding. Behind me, I heard Emma's sobs. I didn't know if she was genuinely crying or if it was part of the role she was playing. But one thing I was certain of, those tears weren't for me, they were for the power she'd lost. When I got to my room and opened the envelope, it wasn't just a letter inside. There was a USB drive, too. Grandfather had recorded something. In the letter, he wrote, Ivory, if you're reading this, I'm no longer among you. The inheritance I've left you isn't just money. It's a tool to help you find the place you deserve. The pain you've carried against your family all these years wasn't just because you were different. Truth was hidden from you. And that truth is on this drive. There are secrets within the walls of this house. It's up to you to uncover them. Protect yourself. Because you're in the middle of a war far deeper than you realize. My heart felt like it might stop. What did this mean? Had my family not only withheld love from me but also concealed some other truth? And more importantly, what had they hidden? And why was it surfacing now? I had no idea what to do with the USB drive my grandfather had left me. After all, I'd never imagined I'd become the owner of such a vast fortune. That moment, the eyes of Emma and my family were fixed on me. There was a palpable anxiety in everyone, though no one would admit it. In truth, they all knew this wasn't just about money, it was like a game. But no one had figured out the rules yet. That night, I was alone at home, eating dinner with the rest of my family and listening to their conversations about grandfather's house had been exhausting. As always, I felt sidelined. My eyes gleamed with the urge to read the letter and explore the USB drive grandfather had left me. I sat in the corner of my room. With every passing second, I grew more curious about what might be inside. I plugged the USB into my computer and opened the file. Slowly, a video grandfather had recorded appeared on the screen. There he was, old but with a powerful voice. I could feel the resolve in his tone, though it carried a calm and chilling edge. Ivory, I've always watched you. You're the only one in this family they never truly noticed. I had to leave this to you because they didn't see you. You need to uncover the truth. You'll peel away your family's false masks one by one. This is my greatest legacy. Because in the end, you won't just find the money, you'll find the truth you deserve. His words echoed in my mind. Everything, grandfather's gaze, his seemingly indifferent yet deeply meaningful words, took on a whole new significance. As my eyes drifted from the screen, I felt a chill in the dark room. I recalled how my family had never seen me as real, their indifference and hatred toward me over the years. But grandfather's words promised that no matter what, things were about to change. The video continued. Ivory, your strength doesn't just come from your mind. Your greatest power is that you're different from them. You've been the most burdened yet the strongest member of this family. Accept this because only that acceptance will bring you closer to the truth. In this family, everything hides behind masks. It's hard to see your true faces when you look at each other. But now, everything is ready for you to find your truth. You must expose this family's lies. The first clue lies where it all began, that old family estate, the mansion. You're closer than you realize to the secrets hidden in every room of that house. But remember one thing, the truth will set you free. It will bring you peace, but there will be pain along the way. Your family is about to lose you, but sadly, they won't understand that. Those words ignited a spark within me. I now understood that nothing in my life had been a coincidence. A difficult journey awaited me and my family. I didn't yet know how to navigate it, but the time had come to take a step forward. The knowledge grandfather had left me was a heavy burden, yet it also warned and emboldened me. I had to uncover the truth. The next morning, everyone at home went about their usual routines. Emma, my mother, and my father were having breakfast, acting as if nothing had happened. But I was different now. The video I'd seen on the USB transcended everything. They'd been living behind their masks for years. I, however, was determined to tear those masks down. I sat at my computer and examined the files on the USB more closely. I knew there were much deeper secrets behind it all. A few old photo files caught my attention. In them were grandfather, my mother, my father, and a large group of people. But some faces had been erased. Who were these people? Why had grandfather hidden a secret that seemed to entangle everything? This wasn't just about our family, it involved others too. For a moment, as I thought about my family, a sentence echoed in my mind. The truth will set you free. In that instant, I realized only one step remained, going to that old mansion. To uncover my family's dark secrets, I had to go there. This journey would change everything. The next evening, late at night, I packed a suitcase and decided to leave. I had to go to that old house and bring all the secrets to light. Place where it all began, the mansion that hid the truth. This was just the beginning. I woke up before sunrise that morning. The house was silent, but the buzzing inside me grew louder with every moment. Grandfather's message was etched into my mind. The truth will set you free. What did it mean? What kind of truth could have been hidden from me all these years? My heart was filled with both anger and fear. Till I was resolute. I no longer wanted to live in the shadows. I quietly returned to my room and prepared my backpack. I packed only the essentials: my notebook, phone, charger, pen, flashlight, and that infamous USB drive. That drive wasn't just a digital device. It felt like the key to confronting my past. Every time I held it, it seemed to grow heavier in my hands. Closer I got to the truth, the heavier the burden felt. The mansion was outside of town, stood at the end of an old forest road, in an area no one had visited for years. I'd been there a few times as a child, but we were never allowed to explore the entire house. There was always a keep-out aura about it. Now I was heading there alone to settle accounts with the past. I stopped the car at the entrance. The wind rustled untouched leaves and branches creaked as they bent. From the outside, the house exuded a heavy silence. It was as if even the walls had sworn not to speak. Key was in the envelope with the letter. With trembling fingers, I unlocked the door. Creaked open, releasing a stale, dusty air into the space. The moment I stepped inside, it felt like time had stopped. Everything remained as it had been the day grandfather left. Antique furniture, bookshelves, framed pictures above the fireplace, all silent witnesses. They seemed ready to tell their story. I headed straight for grandfather's study. The door was ajar. As I stepped in, the smell of old paper and tobacco hit me. The room was both orderly and chaotic. Stacks of documents cluttered the desk, notebooks peeked out from between books, and files were crammed into drawers. Everything seemed to speak, but in whispers. I opened the left drawer of the desk. Inside, I found envelopes written in grandfather's handwriting. One bore my name. With shaking hands, I opened it. A short note slipped out. The answers you seek are in the heart of this house. Find the right wall and the voice of the past will guide you. What did that mean? The heart of the house? Which wall? I took a deep breath and began a thorough search. I examined the shelves, the pictures, the rugs. Everything seemed normal, until I noticed a slightly protruding brick behind the old bookshelf. I ran my fingers over it and pressed lightly. The brick slid inward and a click sounded. Then the bookshelf shifted slightly to the side. Behind it was a hidden passage. A narrow, dark staircase descended downward. My heart pounded wildly, but I couldn't turn back. I pulled out my flashlight and started down the steps one by one. The staircase was made of stone, and the walls smelled of dampness. I didn't know where I was going, but a strange feeling told me I was walking straight into the heart of the answers I'd sought for years. When I reached the bottom, I came to the door of a small room. It was closed but unlocked. I pushed it open slowly. The interior was dark, with only a dusty table and an old chest in the center. On the chest, in large letters, were the words "Sin File." My heart felt like it stopped in that moment. That name signaled the game had taken a serious turn. When I opened the chest, dozens of documents, cassettes, and photographs spilled out. They all belonged to my family. But these weren't records of praise, they were records of crimes. Tax evasion, forgery, inheritance schemes, and worse. Some documents detailed how my mother and father had manipulated grandfather's health, using Emma as a tool. His memory had been tampered with, his medication dosages altered, and certain documents forcibly signed. This was no longer just a family secret. It was proof of a dark, years-long scheme. When I opened the chest, it felt as though the entire weight of the past had crashed down on me. Everything my family had hidden from me for years was surfacing in the darkness of that room. The documents, photographs, and cassettes inside the chest, each one seemed poised to change my life forever. The first document I held was an agreement written and signed by grandfather years ago. It bequeathed half of his estate to my mother. But there was a small, handwritten note attached. The rest of this money can only be claimed by the rightful person. The family may need to know the truth. A chill ran down my spine. Showed how cleverly grandfather had maneuvered. He'd known himself well, but he'd also concealed a terrifying truth about us. Most of the cassettes were old and worn, till I picked one up, found a small tape player, and started it. At the beginning of the recording, grandfather's aged, gravelly voice came through. "Ivory, if you're listening to this tape, then you must know how complicated things have become. Everything you need to learn about your family is here. But be careful. This family is far more dangerous than it appears." His words reignited the fear inside me. The more I learned about what had been hidden from me all those years, the more I felt my world turning upside down. My family had always built walls against me, refusing to see the truth. But now those walls had to come down. I had to make it happen. Grandfather's voice continued on the recording. "These are just the beginning. No matter how strong a bond you think you have with your family, your greatest strength lies in being different from them. You've always felt the pain of never being good enough for them. Now it's your time. You must uncover the truth, expose your family's dark secrets. They were never meant to know this. But you're ready for it, aren't you?" In that moment, a smile crept onto my face. Yes, I was ready. I had to do this. Because the legacy grandfather had left me wasn't just about money. It was time for true retribution. Inside the chest, alongside old photographs and documents, were secret agreements signed by various family members. There were papers stating that grandfather had intended to leave a substantial inheritance to my mother and father years ago. But what caught my eye was that many of these documents bore forged signatures. My family had tried every trick in the book to seize grandfather's fortune. And when he realized it, he'd left these tapes for me to uncover the full truth. In the house, the only sound breaking the silence was the hum of the device playing the cassette. It was like a wind passing through everything. In the heavy atmosphere enveloping the room, the final words of the recording rang in my ears. "I never judged your family without reason. Your strength comes from finding the truth within yourself. But remember, this is only the beginning. Facing what your family has taught you will be a great battle, one that's not just out there but within you." In that moment, I realized grandfather hadn't just tested me. He'd tested the entire family. He'd wanted the truth to come out, but none of us had been fully prepared for it. Yet I understood where the path he'd left me was leading. Now I would show this truth to my family. I'd remind them of the dark past they'd hidden for years. And perhaps in the end, I could finally discover my own identity. Truths emerging from the darkest corners of the house grew larger with every step I took. I couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. I had to find answers to the questions swirling in my mind one by one. And there was only one way to do it: to take this girl, abandoned by her family, always pushed to the sidelines, silenced, and bring her to the place she deserved. To turn the power of these secrets to my advantage and put an end to the pain beneath it all. The mansion was no longer just a shadow of the past. It was now my resolve to build a city of truths. No matter what, I would keep going. The next morning, the weight of everything I'd learned throughout the night in the mansion pressed down on me like a burden on my back. Yes, the truths were now laid bare before me, but facing them wouldn't always be easy. What I'd discovered about my family deepened a void I'd felt for years without fully understanding it. Now, I knew that the legacy grandfather had left me wasn't just about money. It came with the responsibility to uncover the truth. The mansion stood deep along the old forest road outside town, abandoned and forgotten. Ivy wrapped around the entrance path, and the passage of years had left everything darkened and neglected. The chill in the air sent shivers through me, while an inner voice warned that the cost of learning the truth would be steep. But I had to pay that price. If I didn't bring this truth to light, I'd spend my life questioning who I really was. When I stepped inside, the air was dark and heavy. Time seemed frozen in every room of the house. Broken furniture, yellowed walls, dusty shelves, everything whispered the secrets the past had concealed over the years. But now, nothing could scare me. I was determined to do whatever it took to uncover the truth about my family. I went straight to grandfather's study. That room was more than just a reflection of his life and mind. Its walls were lined with old books. The documents scattered across his desk had once recorded every decision he'd made. Everything in this room seemed poised to make me realize the weight of the responsibility he'd entrusted to me. Through a few steps, I found a large file behind the desk. When I opened it, I discovered a collection of old documents and photographs. Most of the photos captured happy family moments, smiling faces frozen in time. But one photo stood out. It was from a family dinner years ago. My mother, father, and Emma were all in the frame. But something, or rather someone, was missing: me. In that instant, I felt the indifference I'd endured for years all over again. Why wasn't I in that picture? 'Cause I was the child relegated to the background. In that moment, I realized my mother and father had always focused on each other, consistently ignoring and belittling me. This photograph was a perfect reflection of the loneliness I'd carried for so long. But behind that photo lay something else: grandfather's hidden documents. They weren't just about the family, they included records about me. Years ago, grandfather had uncovered secret agreements my mother and father had made. The manipulations and dark secrets they'd employed to seize the family fortune were all documented here. This wasn't just a family secret, it was evidence of injustice and betrayal. Suddenly, I felt as though I heard grandfather's voice. "Ivory, learning the truth takes courage." It wasn't real, but it felt so vivid. As I uncovered these truths, my own courage was being tested. In the house, the only sound breaking the silence was the hum of the device playing the cassette. It was like a wind passing through everything. In the heavy atmosphere enveloping the room, the final words of the recording echoed in my ears. "I never judged your family without reason. Your strength comes from finding the truth within yourself. But remember, this is only the beginning. Facing what your family has taught you will be a great battle, one that's not just out there but within you." In that moment, I realized grandfather hadn't just tested me. He'd tested the entire family. He'd wanted the truth to surface, but none of us had been fully prepared for it. Yet I understood where the path he'd left me was leading. Now I would show this truth to my family. I'd remind them of the dark past they'd hidden for years. And perhaps in the end, I could finally discover my own identity. Truths emerging from the darkest corners of the house grew larger with every step I took. I couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. I had to find answers to the questions swirling in my mind one by one. And there was only one way to do it, to take this girl, abandoned by her family, always pushed to the sidelines, silenced, and bring her to the place she deserved. To turn the power of these secrets to my advantage and put an end to the pain beneath it all. The mansion was no longer just a shadow of the past. It was now my resolve to build a city of truths. No matter what, I would keep going. After the night I spent in the mansion, one thing became sharply clear. My family had always treated me like a stranger. For years, I'd felt like I was part of a story that didn't belong to me. But now I was heading toward the center of that story, and with every step, the clues grandfather had left me revealed our truth. At the end of this journey of truths, I'd come to understand who I was. I had to go back. I had a plan to confront my mother and father to show them who they really were. This wasn't just about what they told me, it was about the darkness lurking behind everything. I knew that discovering my own identity was tied to shaking the foundations of this family's ruin. I left the mansion and set out for home. Inside, I wondered what I'd face. My mother and father had never made me feel like part of the family. So instead of seeing them the way I once had, I chose to face them boldly. Perhaps this would be a way to forgive them. Or maybe the only person I needed to forgive was myself. When I arrived home, my mother and father were there. They were sitting at the breakfast table as usual, but the cold distance between us now spoke louder than ever. In my mind, I recalled the moment I'd listened to grandfather's tapes, and everything became clear. Everyone in my family had mastered the art of hiding their thoughts. They'd always seemed to promise me love and security, but in reality, each of them harbored a reckoning. My eyes turned to my mother. We locked gazes for just a few seconds, but the bond between us was so complex and broken that we silently knew what we'd say. She turned her head away and took a slow sip of her coffee. "How are you, Ivory?" she asked, her voice tinged with an impatience that, despite her efforts to mask it, carried a deep unease. "I learned some things from grandfather," I said, fixing my eyes on her. "I learned the truth. Everything in this family has been a lie for years." When she heard this, my mother's face froze for a few seconds. Then the tension in her expression morphed into indifference. In that moment, I realized how practiced this game was for her. Her eyes had always looked at me the same way over the years, changing only when she was truly afraid, a look I'd always noticed. But that day, that look was too stark to hide behind her mask any longer. "What do you mean?" she said, lowering her voice. But a tremor of emotional panic seeped through. "I've learned a lot about what you and Dad did in the past. So much that it'll shock you," I replied. "But most importantly, I'm here to show you this truth. I'm taking back everything I've given you over the years. Because I'm not hiding anything anymore." That moment, my father broke his silence. He'd always been the one to retreat emotionally, but now there was an unfamiliar pain in his eyes. "Ivory, you don't need to take it this far. Things like this aren't talked about in our family. You don't deserve this," he said, but the hurt in his voice didn't shake me further. They knew. All the lies we'd been tangled in were now pieces of the puzzle. They knew it too. Suddenly, I noticed Emma entering the room. Her eyes were vacant, as if she'd come from another world. But there was something, she was aware of this truth too. Looking at her, I realized I didn't owe her any explanations anymore. Everything I saw in her eyes pointed to the fear and anger she'd shown me for years. My gaze shifted to Emma for a moment. We both knew everything was about to change. But this was only the beginning. In that moment, I noticed the fear in my mother's and father's eyes. They knew everything was unraveling, that everything was being exposed. The revelation of the truth would be a step that would change our family forever. But I wanted to see the faces behind it all, to bring to light the injustices that had built up over the years. The dark secrets within this family needed to be dragged into the daylight. For a while, we stood in silence. Emma lingered in the corner of the room, trying to say something but unable to find her voice. There was fear in her eyes, not of joy or worry, but the insecurity of being part of this system. I knew what my family's pressures had done to her. Emma had always been their favorite, but this time things were going to change. My mother wanted to calm my father and me to regain control, but in that moment she realized everything was different. "Ivory," she said, biting her lip. "This family can't accept someone like you. You don't need to take it this far." The desperation in her voice, the coldness on her face, didn't faze me. I'd heard similar words for years. But now, the love I'd once felt for them had turned into a lie. They'd only ever seen me as a tool. Family wasn't about looking out for each other, it was about protecting their own interests. But in this family, it had always been about using someone. And now the game was over. "Are you the ones who decide?" I asked. "Are you the ones who choose what's right and wrong? I've never heard a single truth from you in my entire life. But now, with what I've learned, there's a power standing before you." My voice was cold and firm. "From now on, I've started to see what you all really are." My father took a step forward, his brows furrowed. "Do you really want to take it this far?" he said, his tone still carrying a commanding force. "We've always tried to raise you the right way. But if you truly want to see the truth, then you'll have to pay the price for everything." My eyes shifted to my mother's. For the first time, I saw real anger on her face. "You're the only reason we've had to do these things, your behavior in this family. Over time, we saw how isolated you became. You were always," she began, but her words faltered. "You were always different." In that moment, I recalled the reminders grandfather had left me. I realized how close everything actually was. My family had looked at me differently for years. They'd always treated me like a duty, shaped by what they taught me. But now there was no point in dwelling on that time. My gaze drifted to Emma's eyes. In that instant, I saw the emptiness within her. No matter how similar a path she walked, she didn't know it would lead to the same end. She followed the road my family laid out like a loyal ally. But perhaps she was aware of everything. Emma had been a figure carrying a dark secret for years. Slowly, I turned to her. "I know," I said. "You're aware of it all. You see what this family is. But I can't save you. From now on, I'll fight alone." In that moment, a brief silence fell. I was waiting for everything to resolve. I had to do this. For years, no one had shown me who I was. Now I would show them my own truths. Even though my family was together after all these years, they were still enemies in each other's eyes. Truly, everything had unraveled. When they accepted that, it would all come to an end. This was only the beginning. All the ties I had with my family were starting to fray. After confronting my family, I knew everything was different now. The silence that filled that room reflected everything I'd felt for years. Every word, every glance had collapsed under the weight of the truth. I'd come to understand my mother's and father's indifference toward me, as well as the helplessness in Emma's eyes. But the deepest truth was that finding my own identity came at a cost I had to bear. All those years of rejection and dismissal from them had shaped me from within. But that shape no longer defined me. Severing the fragile bond with my family was painful, yet equally liberating. Because I'd finally discovered who I truly was, and no one, nothing could change that. I found Emma in her room. I stepped inside slowly, cracking the door open. In her eyes, I saw that familiar fear again, but this time I could also feel her anger toward me. I knew talking to her wouldn't change the past, but I needed to see the unease in her gaze. "What do you want, Ivory?" she said, her voice trembling. "Do you think the truth has changed you?" "We'll still be the same." A smile flickered inside me. "No, Emma. We can't be the same anymore." I said with quiet resolve. From now on, everything will be different. Emma's eyes were nothing like the admiring looks I'd once given her. She slowly bowed her head, as if grappling with the darkness within herself. But she didn't have the strength for it. Emma had spent her life wearing masks, adopting other people's stories as her own. Meanwhile, I was now writing my own. Looking back, I walked toward the room where my mother and father were. That was where it all ended. All the small disappointments and big lies I'd endured from them over the years were finally unraveling. I entered the room, facing my mother and father. Fear, anger, and helplessness were etched on their faces, but behind it all was something else: doubt. That gave me enough strength to start revealing the truth to them. "Everything was so simple for you, wasn't it?" I said, my voice cold. "You kept me from seeing all the betrayals you put me through, making sure everything revolved around you. But you can't hide it anymore." My father placed his hands on the table and took a deep breath. "Don't you realize how dangerous this is? You shouldn't shake our family like this," he said, but the threat in his voice no longer held any weight. 'Cause in that moment, he saw the determination in my eyes. "I'm not confronting you, I'm confronting myself," I replied. "That's why everything I've felt for years has become real. What you say to me doesn't matter anymore. Do you still think you can control me?" My mother turned her head away, as if she couldn't bear it any longer. "How can we talk to you like this? Instead of insulting us, we should be together," she said, but her words no longer meant anything to me. I couldn't spend any more time with my family. I didn't have to play their game again. I fixed my eyes on my mother. "You can't save anyone," I said. "The bonds in this family are broken now." Yes, the bonds were broken. But this also signaled that it was time to start anew. Truths had finally ceased to be a burden behind me and had instead granted me my true strength. This was my journey to find my own path. As I left that room, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of my ties with my family. It was also the beginning of my journey to find my own identity. Everything, every lie I'd heard, every tear I'd shed, now formed a foundation that would give me strength. Seeing the truth was a turning point, but it was also the first step toward forging my own path. The air was cold and windy, but I felt a warmth within me. Confronting my family had granted me a freedom I hadn't felt in years. From now on, nothing would be the same. In that moment, I resolved to leave behind the fears and uncertainties I'd carried for so long. Making peace with myself was my greatest victory against a family that had always kept me on the outside. Slowly, I looked out from the window of one of the mansion's rooms. Beyond it lay a vast forest, and in its depths there had always been a path to search for the dreams I'd once lost. The old fears that once ran through me had now given way to a new hope. Learning the truth might have taken something from me through the pains of the past, but it had also given me my strength. I stepped out of the mansion and began walking toward home. Once I'd felt emotionally trapped in that house. But now, out here, I had the chance to recreate myself. In that moment, I reclaimed everything I'd lost over the years. Because I'd learned the truth. Truths can both break a person and lift them up. And I, instead of being broken, was rising. As I walked along, a realization dawned within me. I'd learned to see myself through my own eyes rather than through the eyes of others. I didn't blame anyone, no family, no past. Because now there was only one thing, my life. This rising sense of freedom taught me to move beyond what I'd experienced in the past. My relationship with my family had ended, but my relationship with myself was more real than anything else. This wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. I might have completely severed my ties with my family, but the bond I'd forged with myself had given me all my strength. As I approached my home, I paused for a moment to take stock of everything. In this new life, I was no longer alone. With my truths, I could see who I was more clearly. I was determined to make a fresh start, and in that moment, I abandoned the path that had been shown to me for years. I chose my own,